you wouldn't go watch the first 5 minutes of a movie and then claim to, know whether or not you like that movie. You need more information. You need a bigger picture, right? And so that's what functional medicine does, is it gives us a bigger picture and a broader look at not just the symptoms, but the things at a microscopic level that could be dysfunctional or going wrong.
Welcome to Health Decoded, your number one source for real health information, with your hosts, Dr. Alessi and Matt Tack.
What if you could lower inflammation, heal your gut, and feel incredible in just 6 weeks? Our Repair, Clear, and Thrive Challenge kicks off October 1st and will help you do just that. You're going to get the complete Repair and Clear protocol that we use to detox and restore people's gut, the CoreSync app with customized coaching to keep you accountable, a heart rate monitor for real-time tracking, as well as a full wellness and biometric screen so you can see the results. That's over $1,600 in value. Register by September 1st and you'll also get a free functional medicine consultation with me to personalize your plan. Now, spots are limited and registration closes September 20th. One dedicated winner will walk away with $2,500 worth of prizes. You have nothing to lose, except maybe some pounds, inflammation, gut dysfunction, but you've got a whole lot to win. Go to alessifunctionalhealth.com/challenge to join the challenge. And remember, your health is in your hands. Welcome back to another episode of Health Decoded. I am your host, Dr. Alessi, and today we are going to dive deep, literally deep, into your gut and, the truth about gut health, and ultimately that, your gut is not just about digestion. It is the control center for your immune system, your hormones, and even your brain. If your gut's not right or is dysfunctional, then nothing else is. And yet most people think that fixing gut health is as simple as taking a probiotic. That's been obviously marketed to us lately is probiotics are going to fix all your problems. But today we're going to go far beyond that and really cover why your microbiome controls everything. The signs your gut is broken, the advanced testing that you're not getting at your doctor's office, and most importantly, what it takes to heal. So let's get right into it. This is going to be broken up into the 4 segments like we always do with every episode. What is it? Why is it important? What symptoms might you be experiencing? How to test for dysfunction, and then how to heal. And so let's just get started and really talk about what the gut is, right? It's not just a digestive tube. It's one of the most complex ecosystems on the planet, and it houses over 100 trillion microbes, bacteria, fungi, viruses, and archaea, which are different small types of bacteria that are meant to thrive and kind of live in this symbiotic relationship. And the kicker is there's actually more bacterial DNA sequences in your body than human DNA. And so we're more of a walking petri dish. We're walking around with more microbial cells than we have human cells. And that's not just a metaphor, that's actually biology. And so let's talk about, what does the microbiome do? So number one is digestion and nutrient absorption. So specific bacterial colonies or types of bacteria within the gut do certain jobs, right? They each have kind of a function. And so without the right gut bugs, you're not breaking down certain things like fibers, carbohydrates, starches into short chain fatty acids like butyrate, which really is fuel for our colon cells, which can also keep inflammation down. And so this is often the underlying trigger for a lot of people with things like IBS or Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, those high inflammatory diseases. Hormone balance. So certain bacteria are going to regulate metabolism of hormones, and they will influence the thyroid hormone conversion from T4 to T3. And so if your gut is off, the hormones will subsequently be off as well. The immune system, 70 to 80% of your immune cells sit right along the gut lining. And that's the basically your immune system's training ground. The first line of defense for anything that comes into your body, your immune system has to be prepared. And so when the microbiome is in balance, your immune system is able to determine the difference between what is friend and what is foe. Now, when there's disruption, you can get things like autoimmunity, where now your immune system is confused and your body will begin to attack its own cells because it's not sure what's good, what's bad, and it's just overly hyperactive, your immune system. And then the gut also controls mood and cognition. So there's a term called the gut-brain axis, which is basically this two-way messaging system between your gut and your brain, and it controls secretion of things like neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, which are produced in the large part of the gut. That's why leaky gut or dysbiosis often shows up first as things like brain fog, anxiety, depression, mood issues, maybe loss of energy and that kind of vitality, is because there's something dysfunctional within our gut ecosystem. Now, there was a journal, Nature Reviews Immunology 2020, that was quoted saying, disruptions in gut microbiota are directly linked to autoimmune disease and chronic inflammation. Now, this is researched and published. And so, why is this happening? Why are people so frequently having gut issues in today's age? And it's because modern life is very much toxic to the environment of our gut. Things like antibiotics, which are overly prescribed, right? Whether it's prescriptions or things that are being in our food, right? Hidden antibiotics in the food. These are going to wipe out good bacteria. Think of it like this, right? You have a war going on, and there's a village that has a bunch of bad guys in it, and they're there. But there's also some civilians and people there that are not the bad guys. If you just pour napalm over that village, it kills everything, right? And that's basically what antibiotics do. They go in and they just destroy everything within the gut to fight the infection, but they kill the bad guys or the good guys too. And so basically overuse of antibiotics, especially as a child, basically sets the stage for people to have gut dysfunction and things like autoimmunity later in life. And so that's one of the first questions we often ask when we are treating patients or working with patients with gut issues is, did you have a history of antibiotic use as a child? And most often we did, right? That was just, if you grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, when these things started coming out, it was kind of like, oh, just take this, just take this, just take this. And it was prescribed as kind of like this magic pill without the thought of like what's coming later on. And so other things like glyphosate and pesticides, which are basically antimicrobials, they can damage the gut as well. And these are all over food and within food that we're consuming on a daily basis. Processed food and seed oils feed the bad bacteria. So they actually are like fuel for those pathogenic bacteria if those are present. And then chronic stress, which can reduce our vagal tone from the vagus nerve. If you don't know what the vagus nerve is, go back and listen to the episode a few weeks back where we talked all about vagal tone and how that can influence health and our body's ability to recover. And so chronic stress reduces that vagal tone, which can slow the motility of our gut and basically shift the bacterial balance towards more of a negative than a positive. And so there was a 2017 study done in Frontiers in Microbiology that showed stress alone can shift your microbiome composition within 24 hours. And so they also show that one poor night's sleep can really overstress the gut and lead to this kind of dysfunction within 24 hours or within the next day. And so your gut is really like, think of it like ground zero for your health. If you ignore it, you're setting yourself up for things like IBS, depression, thyroid disease, autoimmunity, even like dementia later in life, because it is, again, the first line of defense for your immune system, your body's healing. And so let's get into a little bit of like what to expect or what to look for. Now, obviously, the major things like I already discussed, IBS, major gut issues and sensitivities, but let's talk a little bit also about some of the ones that are a little less known. And so now I've kind of laid for you the foundation of why your gut matters, why it's important. Let's talk about what happens like when it breaks down and what you should look for. Because you could be having normal bowel movements, everything's fine, but you could still have an out of balance microbiome. And so the more classic symptoms are going to be things like digestive stuff, bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux. Very common ones that we see are things like eczema, acne, psoriasis, or chronic rashes that won't go away. Brain fog, headaches, poor concentration, mood swings that we discussed. And then your immune system, right? If we're constantly having frequent colds, or we have allergies, or these autoimmune flares like psoriasis. And then in the metabolic range, fatigue, weight gain, blood sugar swings, all of these can be related to an imbalance in the microbiome. And so there was a study in the Clinical Reviews in Allergy and Immunology in 2019 that said increased intestinal permeability, or what we call leaky gut, is directly associated with autoimmune conditions, IBS, and chronic fatigue syndrome. And so a lot of these things, if you're going to just a conventional medicine doctor with those types of issues, they're rarely addressing the gut, and they're just going to prescribe some type of medication to help manage the symptoms, when at the root cause, it really is a dysfunction in the gut. And then those prescription medications end up making the problem worse over time. And so, some of the hidden things we see, right? And so those are more the common ones. Some of the hidden things we're going to see is things like leaky gut, right? This one's hard for people to get their mind around and really be able to nail down, like, okay, like, is that what I'm experiencing? Is it not? And so we use specific tests for this. But basically what leaky gut is think of your gut lining as like having this layer that's closed. And over time, the gaps can get wider and get weakened by inflammation, which can allow toxins, food particles, and bacteria to get into the bloodstream, which triggers your immune system and inflammation. We also see things like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Basically, having bacteria that migrate into the small intestine from the large intestine, which can lead to things like bloating, your body not absorbing food, malabsorption, IBS-like symptoms, where we just have like irritability all the time. We also see things like candida and fungus overgrowth, which is basically, candida is an opportunistic yeast that can develop. It can lead to things like craving of sugar, fatigue. It can lead to brain fog, and overall just that feeling of, you're not feeling 100%. And then something that we're seeing a lot more of these days are things like parasites. And it's not just a third world problem. Travel, yes, is a large way people get that. They go to other countries, they consume things, and they can develop parasites. But undercooked food, people who consume a lot of sushi, contaminated water. I actually just read a study that was saying people who live with pets in the home, if the pets are not clean, then that can lead to obviously us being exposed to things like that as well. So, and having parasites. And so there was a study in Gut Microbes 2021 that was quoted saying dysbiosis of the gut microbiota contributes to systemic inflammation and plays a causal role in development of obesity, insulin resistance, and depression. So again, if we're seeing any of these diagnosed conditions, diabetes, obesity, people having like anxiety and high stress, I'm looking to the gut 10 out of 10 times, because again, ground zero, this is the first line of defense. And so some of the red flags you will want to look for, right? If you're experiencing any of these things, you need to check your gut. Do you react to more and more foods over time? Like as I've gotten older, I'm more sensitive to certain foods. Do you feel inflamed, like your whole body hurts, or your whole body is stiffness and achy and sore, but you can't really like pinpoint why? And then do you struggle with fatigue, right? Every day you crash, no matter how much caffeine you drink. You drink 3-4 cups of coffee, but you still just can't get that energy back. These are hallmark signs that your gut is not functioning properly, and your immune and metabolic gatekeeper is basically working overtime. And so, if your symptoms feel like they're everywhere, right? They're brain, skin, hormones, it all comes back to the gut. And so we need to calm the storm to get to the root cause of that problem. So now let's get to, we talked about what it is, kind of what you can experience or what you might be looking for, red flags. Now let's talk about how we test for dysfunction or dysbiosis. But first, I want to take a quick word from one of our sponsors. This episode of Health Decoded is brought to you by Authentic Nutrition the brand redefining what it means to fuel your body the right way. At Authentic Nutrition, they believe that what you put into your body matters. That's why every single product is crafted with clean, premium ingredients and dosed with maximum efficacy to ensure you're not just meeting your health goals, you're exceeding them. No fillers, no shortcuts, no gimmicks. Whether it's their advanced supplements for energy, recovery, or gut health, you can trust that what's on the label is exactly what's in the bottle. Authentic Nutrition delivers science-backed formulations that work as hard as you do. If you're tired of products that promise the world but don't deliver, it's time to make the switch to Authentic Nutrition. Elevate your health with transparency, quality, and results you can feel. Check them out today at AuthenticNutrition.com and use promo code Alessi15 to get 15% off. That's THENTIC Nutrition.com, promo code ALESSI15 to save 15% and take the first step toward real, lasting health. Authentic Nutrition. Fuel your best self. Now back to the episode. All right, welcome back. Let's get into how functional medicine tests for gut dysfunction and some of the things that we use on a daily basis within our clinics. So here's where functional medicine takes a completely different path than the conventional care approach. So, if you were to walk into your primary care office with gut complaints, they're probably going to, number one, want to do a colonoscopy, or maybe they're going to test for H. pylori because those are the main big ones that they know what to do with. And so if those come back clear, then they're going to just tell you you're fine. But the truth is, you can have massive dysfunction at the microbiome, immune, or even that leaky gut level, and standard tests will miss it every time. So it all goes back to what we always talk about. You wouldn't go watch the first 5 minutes of a movie and then claim to, know whether or not you like that movie. You need more information. You need a bigger picture, right? And so that's what functional medicine does, is it gives us a bigger picture and a broader look at not just the symptoms, but the things at a microscopic level that could be dysfunctional or going wrong. And so let's talk about basically the main tests we will use to analyze the gut, decipher what's going on, obviously, and then that will guide us on how we can heal and fix it. And so number one is usually going to be a zonulin or intestinal permeability test. And I will tell you right now that 99% of the time, if I'm testing someone for this, I'm getting a positive leaky gut diagnosis. And it's because the symptoms of leaky gut are often so accurate that if somebody comes in and they're saying all these things, we run this test. It's really a confirmation, but it's going to obviously, number one, confirm it for us, but then allow us to make the right steps. And so we'll get into that here in a sec. But basically what that is zonulin is a protein that regulates those tight junctions in the gut and how close the cells are to each other, which again prevents that leakiness of things getting into the bloodstream. And so this test, it confirms whether or not someone has leaky gut. And so the next one we would look into, right? And often we're going to run these together. The intestinal permeability test is a serum test looking for those antibodies, but the next one is a stool analysis, a comprehensive stool analysis. This can measure bacterial balance. It can measure pathogenic organisms, parasites, yeast, and even viruses that could be in the stool or in the gut, right? And so it reports on short-chain fatty acids as well. These are SCFAs, which are critical for gut and immune health. And so you've probably heard of those before, but not really sure what they are. Basically, these are what are broken down by when your gut breaks down fiber, it produces these, and those are important for healing. Now, it also is going to screen for IgA markers, which are markers of gut inflammation. And so these two tests are going to be pretty much every single time somebody comes in with these types of issues. And then the next one, which is called an organic acids test, we're running this one a lot as well. And so this measures the metabolites that are kicked off when your body, if your body has yeast, fungi, or bacteria. It tells us if there's any type of hidden overgrowth that we need to look into as well. It also tests for your mitochondrial function, as well as if your body is detoxing or having limited detoxification production. And so it's actually a really great test because it gives us a pretty broad picture and goes a little bit deeper than the others. The next one would be a food sensitivity panel. Very often we're going to run this with a leaky gut test because it's like, okay, yeah, you have leaky gut. Now, why is that? Well, your body has sensitivities to gluten, dairy, eggs, meat, whatever it might be that are triggering that inflammation, causing the leaky gut. And so again, when we get into what we're going to talk about with the corrective protocol of like our 5 R's, number one is always removing. And so you have to remove the things that are causing damage. And so we would run that test along with the leaky gut test. And then some other add-ons that we would want to see is maybe like you can do a SIBO breath test, but the stool test is going to tell us if there's SIBO. A comprehensive nutrient panel is great. Is your body absorbing, any of the vitamins that you should be? So that will tell us as well. And then a mycotoxin test is awesome as well to see if there's any mold exposure or, because toxins, they can impair the gut lining as well as the microbiome and create that imbalance. And so as always, we're looking for more than just a diagnosis, right? Like more than just, hey, you have this. We want to know why. We want to know at a very, very myopic level, like what is the cause of it? Because then we know what we can do to fix it. If I just have a piece of the picture, then I'm guessing, and we're really just taking shots in the dark. People end up wasting a lot of time, a lot of money, and they end up very frustrated because they still didn't fix the problem that they came in with. And so, with the data, we can build precision protocols that aren't just focused on your symptoms. They're going to rebuild gut resilience from the inside out. There was an awesome study in the Integrative Medicine Clinic Journal 2019. Functional lab testing identifies subclinical gut dysfunction that standard GI tests miss, leading to earlier interventions and thus better outcomes. And so that's awesome because, if you're bloated, you're fatigued, you're inflamed, but your doctor told you that everything was normal because you had a basic test done. It's not because nothing's wrong. You're not crazy. It's because you didn't look deep enough or in the right place. And so you have to get the full picture. And honestly, this is exactly why we created the Alessi Total Care program, because testing without a plan doesn't fix anything either. So you can have all the data in the world, but if you don't know what to do with it, you're still in the same boat. And so with Total Care, we go beyond standard labs. We combine advanced functional medicine lab testing with personalized nutrition, doctor-grade nutraceuticals, lifestyle coaching, as well as follow-up care. So you're not just guessing, but your body is actually healing. And then the best part is you're not doing it alone. We have a whole team that's going to guide you step by step through the results of your labs, prescribing protocols, and then giving you lifestyle and habit techniques that you can do for life to then proactively stay ahead of problems in the future. And so if you're ready to stop, just treating symptoms and you actually want to start fixing the root cause, I would encourage you to go visit alessifunctionalhealth.com/total care, and you can learn more about this program and see if it's a good fit for you. Now, let's get into the final piece here, which is what we call the 5R gut healing protocol. And so we've discussed this before on previous episodes, but I just want to get in a little bit more detail here. And this should paint a really good picture for you as to the ideal way to correct some of these imbalances that we just discussed. And so we discussed, the gut, what it is, what are the warning signs to look for, and then how you test for dysfunction. Now let's get into solutions. So this is what we call the 5R protocol, and it's really a framework. Everybody's going to have a different-ish variation of this depending on if they have different food sensitivities, what might be going on within the gut microbiome. But ultimately, this is going to be the framework we follow. And so step one is the first R, remove. So we need to remove inflammatory foods, gluten, dairy, refined sugar, alcohol, highly processed seed oils. We're going to remove any infections or overgrowths like parasites, candida, SIBO. We target these with specific herbs, things like oregano oil and berberine, and any antiparasitics if needed. And then we want to remove environmental toxins, so reducing exposure to pesticides or things within our personal care products that we might be putting on our body that are leading to toxicity and thus inflammation. And so there was a great quote out of Clinical Reviews in Allergy and Immunology in 2019 that said, removing dietary triggers significantly reduced intestinal permeability and inflammation. So again, before we can do anything else, we need to remove what's causing damage in the first place. And so step 2, replace. So we need to support what's missing in digestion. And so we use digestive enzymes, which are going to help your body to break down carbs, proteins, fats, things like betaine HCl, which is hydrochloric acid, which can improve stomach acid to further support protein breakdown. We use things like bile salts and bitters, which are going to help your body to absorb things like the fatty acids that you're taking in, and ultimately improve the ability for your body to function before we start now pushing things like probiotics. And so then that takes us into step 3, which is the third R, re-inoculate. And so now we want to basically rebuild a very healthy and diverse microbiome. So we use probiotics that contain multiple strains that have, we can fill in the gaps of where you're deficient. So what we've specifically tested, you're lacking in these markers, we can build those back up. We use things like prebiotics, fibers from foods like asparagus, onions, and then certain supplements as well as using fermented foods. Food is medicine. And so if we can use things like sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir is a great one to provide some healthy probiotic bacteria to the gut to rebuild those colonies. And so there was a quote out of the Gut Microbes Journal 2022, targeted probiotic therapy reduced markers of leaky gut and systemic inflammation in 4 weeks. And so people think this is going to be some lifelong journey. We see great turnaround within the first few months of symptoms. Obviously, the full remission and healing takes a little bit of time, right? Often 6 to 12 months. But as far as symptomatology based, people usually start to feel better pretty soon. And so step 4 is now the fourth R, repair. And so we've got some more beneficial bacteria within the gut. Now we want to heal that gut lining, right? If we had the leaky gut and it was damaged, we use specific nutrients, things like L-glutamine, which is basically fuel for the cells in your intestines. Zinc carnosine, which tightens those junctions and can repair, as well as collagen, peptides, bone broth, and things like omega-3 fatty acids to reduce the inflammation. And so peptides are becoming a lot more used for these types of things. Specifically, the BPC 157 peptide is basically a gut acid peptide. And so if we take it orally instead of an injection, the oral dose goes to the gut and it can actually start to heal that gut tissue as well. It's pretty awesome. And then the fifth R is going to be the rebalancing. And so this is where we focus on more of the long-term lifestyle approach, but also giving you kind of like, hey, here's the keys to the city, right? You have the tools now that it takes to keep this healthy. Now you just need to maintain that lifestyle. And so we focus on things like stress management, breath work, meditation, right? Because we talked about how stress can wreck the gut. So you don't want to do all this work to correct your problem and fix your gut and then go back to the stressful lifestyle that you were in that wrecked it in the first place. We focus on sleep, right? Because sleep is very important for a balanced circadian rhythm, which directly impacts the diversity of flora in your gut. And then movement, exercise, as well as, maintaining a healthy diet are going to be paramount as well for maintaining that microbiome diversity long term. And people can take things like probiotics long term. There's no negatives to that if you need to, but ultimately you don't have to either if you're eating diverse and maintaining a level of diversity within your diet and exercise as well. And so, the biggest takeaway here for everybody is that gut healing isn't a pill. It's not something you're going to go get from your primary care doc and it's going to fix your problem like that. Unfortunately, I do wish it worked that way, but it is a process. And so we have found a way or created a way to make that process, easier for people to incorporate into their daily life, because that's often the hardest part is people want to fix their problem, but the amount of effort and work and consistency it takes, we don't have time for that, right? We don't have a time in our busy schedule in our life to do something like that. But we take that into account because we're busy. I'm busy. I have kids. I have life, a business, all of that. And so we want to be able to find a way that makes it work for you. And so everything is personalized. We build lifestyle plans, and we get really great results because we're able to focus on the person as a whole, including everything, right? Their lifestyle, their family, all of that, and not just focus on their symptoms and their issue. And so, you're building really a foundation for your immune system, your hormones, your mood, and then longevity, whatever that looks like for you. So if you would like to learn more about how we help to diagnose, reverse, and heal gut dysfunction within our functional medicine programs, go to alessifunctionalhealth.com. Schedule a consultation with me or one of our other providers. Let's create a personalized plan for lifelong health. Listeners of the show, you're always going to get exclusive discounts and reductions on price, on any protocols, lab tests, or anything else. And so just be sure to mention to us where you heard about us. And as always, if you found value in this show, please subscribe to our channels, and share this with someone who you think needs to hear it. That's how we can grow the message and help change more lives and help more people. If you'd like to get in touch with us, or if you have a story you'd like to share on an episode, email it to us, ask@alessifxhealth.com. Then you can always visit alessifxhealth.com, sign up for our newsletter, and that's how you'll stay up to date with all our resources and learn more about our approaches to cutting-edge therapy. Thank you again for tuning in to Health Decoded. I'm Dr. Alessi, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the truth about all things health and empower you to take charge of your well-being. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. For more resources and personalized support, visit us at alessifunctionalhealth.com and sign up for our newsletter. To hear your questions answered live on the show, send them to ask@alessifxhealth.com. That's ask@alessifxhealth.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.